The great hall of the Galactic Council stretched for miles. Its walls were made of living crystal that hummed with ancient energy. Lights floated in the air like captured stars. 12 massive thrones sat in a circle, each one holding a representative of the oldest species in the known universe, Admiral Park. Taiho stood in the center of this hall. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. Behind him stood his team, Kim Yuna, the brightest scientist Earth had ever produced, and Lee Minho, a military strategist who had never lost a battle. They wore their finest uniforms, but they felt small in this place. The Valori High Commander looked down at them from his throne. His skin was pale blue, and his eyes had no pupils, just endless white. When he spoke, his voice filled the entire hall without effort. "You have been judged," he said. "The council has reached its decision." Taiho stepped forward. His heart was beating fast, but his voice remained steady. "We ask only for fairness. Humanity has much to offer. We bring art, music, science, and friendship. We wish to join the galactic community as equals." A sound came from the thrones. It took Taiho a moment to realize it was laughter. The Morlock representative, a creature of shadow and smoke, leaned forward. "Equals, your species is barely 10,000 years old. We have watched galaxies form and die. You are children playing with fire." Una stepped beside Taiho. She held a small device in her hands. "Please allow me to show you what humanity has created." She activated the device, and holograms filled the air, paintings by the great masters. Symphonies that made even the cold-hearted Valori pause. Mathematical equations that solved problems the Council had struggled with for centuries. "We are young," Una said softly, "but we learn fast. We create, we dream. Is that not valuable?" For a moment, there was silence. Some of the council members exchanged glances. The Brethany representative, a being of pure light, seemed moved by the display, but the Valori High Commander raised his hand, and the holograms disappeared. "We have seen enough," he said. "Your creativity is not the question. Your nature is." He waved his hand, and new images appeared: human history, wars, destruction, atomic bombs falling on cities, soldiers marching across blood-soaked fields. "In your short existence, you have killed more of your own kind than most species kill in 1,000,000 years. The High Commander continued. "You are aggressive. You are unpredictable. You spread like a disease, consuming everything in your path." Minho clenched his fists. "We have also shown mercy. We have rebuilt what we destroyed. We have learned from our mistakes, have you?" The High Commander's white eyes seemed to pierce through him. "Your ships carry weapons. Your soldiers trained for combat. Even now, standing in this sacred hall, your hearts beat with the desire to fight." Taiho took a deep breath. "We carry weapons because the universe is dangerous. We train because we must protect our people. But we did not come here for war. We came for peace." The council deliberated in their ancient language, sounds that human ears could barely process. Minutes passed, then hours. Taiho and his team stood waiting, their legs aching, their hope fading with each passing moment. Finally, the High Commander spoke again. "The vote is complete. It is unanimous." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "Humanity is hereby exiled from the galactic community. You are forbidden from entering council space. Your home system will be erased from all records. You will be sent to the outer void, beyond the edge of the galaxy, where you will live out your existence in darkness." Taiho felt the ground shift beneath his feet. "You cannot do this. There are 8 billion people on Earth, children, families, innocents, who have done nothing wrong." "We are not monsters," the High Commander replied. "We will not destroy you. That would make us no better than you. But we will not allow your violence to spread among the stars. The outer void is vast. You may build your civilization there, far from those you might harm." Yuna was crying now. "Please, give us a chance. We can change. We can prove ourselves." The Brethany representative spoke for the first time. Its voice was like wind chimes in a storm. "I voted against this decision. I believe humanity has potential, but I was alone. The council has spoken, and the council's word is law. Guards appeared, tall, armored beings from a dozen different species. They surrounded the human delegation not with violence, but with cold efficiency. As they were led away, Minho whispered to Taiho, "We should fight. We should make them pay for this." Taiho shook his head slowly. "No, fighting now would only prove them right. We will go to the void. We will survive. And one day, when they have forgotten about us, we will return." The journey to the outer void took 3 years. Every human ship was gathered. Colony vessels, military cruisers, cargo haulers, anything that could carry people and supplies. 8 billion souls packed into metal containers, flying toward the darkness. On the bridge of the flagship, Taiho watched as the last stars of the known galaxy faded behind them. Yuna stood beside him, her eyes red from weeks of crying. Minho was already planning, drawing maps of the void, calculating how they might survive in a place where no life was supposed to exist. "They think this is our end," Taiho said quietly. "They think the darkness will break us." "Will it?" Yuna asked. Taiho turned to face her. For the first time since the verdict, there was fire in his eyes. "No, the darkness will make us stronger. We will learn its secrets. We will build something new. And when we return, not our children, not our grandchildren, but our descendants 100 generations from now, the galaxy will see what humanity truly is." The ships crossed into the outer void, and the borders sealed behind them. The council celebrated their victory in erased Earth. From their maps, they would not think of humanity again for 300 years, and that would be their greatest mistake. The outer void was nothing like the humans expected. There were no suns, no planets with breathable air, no resources waiting to be claimed. There was only darkness, endless, crushing darkness that stretched in every direction. The first 50 years were the hardest. Ships broke down. Food ran out. Millions died from starvation, disease, and despair. Some people lost hope completely and walked into airlocks, choosing a quick death over slow suffering, but humanity did not give up, Commander. Choi Sunwoo was born on a refugee ship during the darkest days of the exile. He never saw Earth. He never felt real sunlight on his skin. But he grew up hearing stories about green forests and blue oceans, about a world so beautiful that it made grown men weep. Those stories became his fuel. By the time Sunwoo took command of the 7th Fleet, humanity had learned to survive. They had found dying stars scattered throughout the void, ancient things that still gave off enough energy to power their ships. They discovered frozen asteroids containing ice and minerals. They had built stations in the darkness, ugly and functional, but home. Hanjun was Sunwoo's chief engineer. She was a small woman with quick hands and a brilliant mind. One day, she came to him with an idea that would change everything. "The dying stars," she said, spreading her calculations across the table. "They are not just dying. They are transforming. The energy they release is unlike anything the Council has ever studied. If we can harness it properly, we will have unlimited power." Sunwoo looked at the numbers. He did not understand most of them, but he understood the excitement in Jun's eyes. "Do it," he said. "Whatever you need." It took 10 years, but Jun succeeded. She created the Void Reactor's engines that could drink the energy of dying stars and convert it into power beyond imagination. Suddenly, humanity's ships could travel faster than ever before. Their weapons became stronger. Their shields became unbreakable, but power alone was not enough. Yoon Dojan was the fleet's navigator, a quiet man who spent his days staring at star charts that showed nothing but emptiness. One night, he noticed something strange, patterns in the darkness, paths where space itself seemed to bend. "There are tunnels here," he told Sunwoo. "Natural wormholes, hidden in the void. The Council never found them because they never came here. But we can use them. We can travel across the void in days instead of years." With Jun's reactors and Do-Yun's tunnels, humanity spread across the outer void like seeds in fertile soil. They built colonies on frozen worlds. They carved cities into asteroids. They created a civilization in a place where civilization was supposed to be impossible, and they were not alone. The first aliens they met were the Marathi gentle creatures with soft blue skin and forearms. The council had exiled them 2,000 years ago for refusing to fight in their wars. They had survived in the void by hiding, by staying small and quiet, by hoping that no one would notice them. When human ships found the Marathi hiding in a dead system, Sunwoo had a choice. He could ignore them, or he could help them. He chose to help. "We know what it feels like to be cast out," Sunwoo told the Marathi leader. "We will not do to you what the council did to us. Join us. Together, we will be stronger," Marathi accepted. They shared their knowledge of void biology, of plants that could grow without sunlight, of creatures that lived in the space between stars. In return, humanity shared their technology and protection. Soon, other exiled species came forward. The Bryn were warriors, tall and powerful, with skin like stone. The council had banished them for refusing to kneel. The Silken were ancient beings, older than most council species, cast out for asking too many questions about the council's origins. One by one, they joined humanity's growing alliance. They called themselves the Void Collective, a family of outcasts united by their shared suffering. Beak. Adi was young when the collective was formed. She was not a soldier or a scientist. She was a historian, a keeper of stories. While others focused on survival, Nari focused on memory. She collected every recording of Earth she could find, videos of forests and mountains, songs sung by people long dead, books written in languages that children no longer spoke. She created archives and taught classes, making sure that no one forgot where they came from. "Why does it matter?" a young soldier asked her once. "Earth is gone. We will never see it again." Nari smiled sadly. "Earth is not just a place," she said. "It is who we are. It is why we keep fighting. If we forget Earth, we forget ourselves." And then the council wins. 200 years passed. The Void Collective grew stronger with each generation. Their technology advanced beyond anything the council possessed. Their population recovered and expanded. Their spirit remained unbroken. Sunwoo died at the age of 112, surrounded by his family and his crew. His last words were simple. "Tell them we are coming. Tell them to be afraid." His great-grandson, Seo Junho, heard those words. He carried them in his heart as he rose through the ranks, as he trained for a war that everyone knew was coming. The council had forgotten about humanity. They had moved on, confident that the exiles had died in the darkness. They were about to be reminded. In the void, preparations were complete. 700 warships waited in formation. 3 million souls stood ready to reclaim their place among the stars. Admiral Junho stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked out at his fleet. Beside him stood the Marathi, the Bren, the Silken, and a dozen other species that the council had thrown away. 300 years, Junho said quietly. 300 years of darkness, but darkness does not last forever, gave the order, and the fleet began to move. The exiles were going home. The Galactic Council had grown weak. 3 centuries of peace had made them lazy. Their warriors had become politicians. Their scientists had stopped inventing. Their people had forgotten what it meant to struggle. The Valerie still ruled, but their grip was slipping. Younger species whispered about revolution. Border worlds demanded more freedom. The great empire that had judged humanity was cracking from within. High Commander Vorath sat on his throne in the Great Hall, just as his ancestor had done 300 years ago. He was bored. The council meetings were always the same: minor disputes, trade agreements, complaints about taxes. Nothing exciting ever happened anymore. Then the alarm started. Every sensor on the border exploded with warnings. Thousands of contacts appeared on the screens, coming from a direction that no ship had ever traveled: the outer void. "Impossible," Vorath said, rising from his throne. "Nothing lives in the void." His military advisor rushed forward, his face pale with fear. "High Commander, the signals, they are human." For a moment, Vorath did not understand. Human. The humans were gone. They had died in the darkness centuries ago. Everyone knew this. It was a historical fact, but the screens did not lie. Admiral Seo Junho stood on the bridge of his flagship. The dawn of Earth. It was the largest vessel humanity had ever built, powered by 3 void reactors armed with weapons that could crack planets in half. Around him, 700 ships of the Void Collective held formation. Human cruisers, Roddy carriers, Bren battleships, Silken destroyers. "We have crossed the border," reported King Minji, his tactical officer. She was a sharp woman, with cold eyes and a calm voice. "Council's sensors have detected us. They know we are here." Junho nodded slowly. "Good. Open a channel. Let them hear our voice." Ohayon, the communications specialist, worked his controls. Within seconds, the transmission was ready, broadcasting to every ship, every station, every planet in Council space. Junho stepped forward and spoke clearly. "This is Fleet Admiral Co. Junho of the Void Collective. 300 years ago, your council exiled humanity to the darkness. You believed we would die. You believed wrong." He paused, letting his words sink in. "We have returned. We do not come for revenge. We come for justice. Stand down your fleets, and no one needs to die. Resist, and you will learn what humanity has become." Across the galaxy, billions of beings heard this message. Some laughed, some cried, some prayed. And in the Great Hall, High Commander Varath felt something he had never felt before. Fear. But he was Valerie. His kind did not surrender. "Send every ship we have," Varath ordered. "Destroy these animals before they spread their disease." The Council's response came within hours. 4,000 warships gathered at the border, the combined fleet, the largest military force in galactic history. They outnumbered the Void Collective almost 6-1. Minji studied the enemy formation on her screen. "They think numbers will save them," she said. "They do not understand what we have become." Junho smiled slightly. "Show me their flagship." The screen zoomed in on the Council's command vessel, a massive thing covered in gold and jewels. Built to impress rather than to fight. Compared to the human ships, dark and angular and deadly, it looked like a toy. "They have been playing at war for 3 centuries, Junho said. "We have been living it." The combined fleet attacked first. Thousands of missiles and energy beams streaked across space, enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The Council commanders waited for the Void Collective to burn, but the human shields held. June's Void reactors had given them power beyond measure. The attacks splashed against energy barriers like rain against stone. Not a single ship was damaged. Then humanity struck back. The battle was not a fight. It was a lesson. Human pilots flew circles around Council ships, hitting them from angles they could not defend. Bren warriors boarded enemy cruisers and tore through their crews like ghosts. Silken hackers disabled weapons and shields with a thought. Marathi medics saved everyone they could, even enemy soldiers. Within 6 hours, the combined fleet was broken. Half their ships were destroyed. The other half were drifting, powerless, waiting for rescue. And still, the Void Collective held their position. They did not chase the survivors. They did not destroy the helpless. They simply waited. Voreth watched from his throne as the reports came in. His greatest warriors defeated. His finest ships burning in the void. And the humans had not even tried. "This is impossible," he whispered. "They are primitives. They are nothing." His advisor spoke carefully. "High Commander, they are asking to negotiate." Vorath's white eyes widened. "Negotiate? After this massacre, they want to talk?" "Yes, High Commander." "Admiral Junho has requested a meeting in the Great Hall. He promises safe passage for all council members," says. The advisor hesitated, says he wants to show us what we could not see 300 years ago. For a long moment, Voreth sat in silence. His pride demanded that he refuse, that he fight to the last ship, that he died before kneeling to humans, but his survival instinct was stronger. "Tell him we accept," Voreth said quietly. "Tell him we will listen." On the dawn of Earth, Junho received the message. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. 300 years, he said softly. "We have waited 300 years for this moment." Minji stepped beside him. "Do you think they will truly listen?" "It does not matter," Junho replied. "They will see. They will understand. And then they will have to choose. Peace or extinction." He opened his eyes and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, Earth was waiting, the home of all humanity, a world he had never seen but loved with all his heart. "Prepare my shuttle," he ordered. "I have a council to meet." The return had begun. Everything was about to change. The great hall looked different now. The crystal walls still hummed with ancient energy, but the floating lights seemed dimmer, sadder. The 12 thrones were empty except for one High Commander. Vorath sat alone, his white eyes fixed on the entrance. Admiral Junho walked into the hall with slow, measured steps. He wore a simple black uniform with no medals, no decorations. Behind him came his officers, Minji, Hyun, representatives from every species in the Void Collective. Vorath studied the human's face. He searched for anger, for hatred, for the bloodlust that his ancestors had warned about. But he found only calm. "You asked to meet," Vorath said. His voice echoed in the empty hall. "Speak." Junho stopped in the center of the room, the same spot where Park Taiho had stood 3 centuries ago, begging for mercy. But Junho did not beg. 300 years ago, your council made a choice, Junho began. You looked at humanity and saw only danger. You saw our wars, our violence, our capacity for destruction, and you decided that we did not deserve to exist among the stars. Vorath nodded slowly. We did what was necessary. Your species was a threat. Perhaps, Junho admitted, but you missed something important. You saw our darkness, but you did not see our light. You saw our capacity for destruction, but you did not see our capacity for creation, for love, for growth. He gestured to the beings behind him. Look at what we built in the darkness. The Marathi, the Bryn, the silken species you threw away like garbage. We found them. We helped them. We built a family together. Not because we wanted power, but because we knew what it felt like to be alone. Vorath's expression did not change, but something flickered in his eyes. Pretty words. But words do not stop wars. No, Junho agreed. They do not, which is why we will show you instead. He raised his hand and Mingi activated a holographic display. Images filled the air, not of battles and victories, but of something else entirely. Human doctors treating wounded council soldiers. Void Collective ships rescuing escape pods from enemy vessels. Prisoners being fed, healed, and treated with dignity. Your combined fleet attacked us, Junho said. 4,000 ships tried to destroy us. We could have killed them all. Our weapons are stronger. Our shields are better. We had every advantage. He paused. But we did not come here to kill. We came here to prove a point. Vorath stared at the images. He saw his own soldiers, enemies who had tried to murder these humans, being saved by the very people they wanted to destroy. He asked, and for the first time, his voice was uncertain. Why would you save those who hate you? Junho stepped closer to the throne. Because that is what makes us human. We do not define ourselves by how we treat our friends. We define ourselves by how we treat our enemies. Your council believed that strength means dominance. We learned something different in the void. True strength is mercy. True power is compassion. The hall fell silent. Even the ancient crystals seemed to hold their breath. Then Vorath spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. My ancestor voted to exile your kind. He believed he was protecting the galaxy. He believed he was doing right. I know, Junho said, and I am not here to judge him or you. The past cannot be changed, but the future can. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small object, an old medal, worn and faded. This belonged to Admiral Park Taiho. He carried it throughout the exile and passed it down through generations. Do you know what it says? Vorath shook his head. Junho turned the medal over. It says, remember who we are. Taiho could have filled our ancestors with hatred. He could have taught them to dream of revenge, of burning your worlds and slaughtering your people, but he did not. He taught them to remember their humanity, their kindness, their hope. He placed the medal on the floor before Vorath's throne. We have won this war. Your fleet is broken. Your council is divided. We could destroy everything you have built, but we will not. Voreth leaned forward. Then what do you want? Justice, Junho replied simply. Not revenge. Not punishment. Just justice. We want our home back. We want our place among the stars. And we want the council to admit that what they did was wrong. For a long moment, Voreth did not move. His white eyes stared at the metal on the floor, at this small piece of metal that represented 300 years of suffering and survival. Then, slowly he rose from his throne. He was tall, taller than any human, but somehow he seemed small in that moment. He walked down the steps until he stood face to face with Junho. I am old, Voreth said quietly. I have ruled the council for 200 years. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have made decisions that affected billions of lives. Paused. And I have never been wrong. Until now, picked up the metal and held it carefully as if it were made of glass. What my ancestor did to your people was cruel. What the council did was unjust. We claimed to be civilized, but we acted like monsters. He looked at Junho with something new in his eyes. Respect. You had every right to become what we feared. Instead, you became something better. Junho felt his heart beating faster. This was the moment he had dreamed of his entire life. Then you accept our terms? Voreth nodded slowly. The council will dissolve. A new government will be formed, one where every species has a voice, including humanity. He held out his hand, offering the metal back, and Earth will be restored to your people. This I swear. Junho took the metal. His fingers trembled slightly. 300 years, he said softly. 300 years of darkness, and now light. Behind him, the representatives of the Void Collective began to weep. Marati, Bren, Silken, Human, all of them crying together, releasing centuries of pain and hope. Vorsh watched them with ancient eyes. I must ask you one question, Admiral. After everything we did to you, how can you stand there without hatred? How can you offer peace instead of war? Junho smiled, a real smile, full of warmth. Because hatred is easy, High Commander. Peace is hard. Anyone can destroy. Only the strong can build. He tucked the metal back into his pocket, close to his heart. Humanity learned that lesson in the darkest place in the universe. Now it is time to teach it to the galaxy. Outside the Great Hall, the news spread like wildfire. The war was over. The exiles had won. And the galaxy would never be the same again. On the dawn of Earth, Captain Shinyunbi heard the announcement and closed her eyes. Somewhere out there, a blue planet was waiting. Soon, she would see it with her own eyes. The galaxy was healing. In the months following the Council's surrender, everything changed. The old government dissolved just as Voroth had promised. In its place rose something new. The New Accord, a coalition where every species, no matter how small or weak, had an equal voice. Elder Beeknari was chosen as humanity's first representative. She was old now, her hair white as snow, her face lined with the marks of a long life. But her eyes were still sharp, and her memory was perfect. She remembered every story, every song, every dream that her people had carried through 3 centuries of darkness. On her first day in the new council chamber, Nari looked around at the gathered representatives, hundreds of species from across the galaxy, many of them meeting as equals for the first time. I've spent my whole life preserving the past, she told them. But today, I want to talk about the future. She smiled softly. We were all strangers once. Some of us were enemies. Some of us were forgotten. But here we are, sitting together, building something that has never existed before. Let us not waste this chance. The new accord was not perfect. There were arguments, disagreements, and old wounds that took time to heal. The Valori struggled to accept their reduced role. Some species still feared humanity and what they might do with their power. But slowly, day by day, trust began to grow. The Marathi shared their knowledge of medicine and healing. The Bren taught their ancient martial arts, but also their philosophy of honor and protection. The Silken opened their archives, revealing secrets that the Council had hidden for thousands of years. And humanity. Humanity shared everything. Their music, their art, their science, their hope. Admiral Junho watched from a distance. His work was not done, but the hardest part was over. Now he had one more mission to complete. Captain Shin Yunbi, he called over the communication channel. Report to the flagship. We have a journey to make. Yunbi was a fighter pilot, one of the best in the fleet. She had grown up in the void, flying through asteroid fields and battling in the darkness. But when she heard Junho's order, her heart nearly stopped. She knew what journey he meant. The expedition fleet was small, only 50 ships. They did not need weapons or warriors. They needed witnesses. The journey to Earth took 2 weeks through the hidden tunnels of the void. During that time, Yunbi could barely sleep. She spent her nights staring at old recordings of Earth, watching videos of forests and rivers and oceans that she had never seen. "Are you afraid?" asked Park Jin-ho, who served as her second-in-command. He was a descendant of the original Admiral Taiho, and he carried that responsibility with quiet pride. "Not afraid," Yunbi replied. I do not know how to feel. Earth has always been a story to me, a beautiful dream, and now it is about to become real." Jin-ho nodded. "My ancestor walked on Earth's soil. He breathed its air. He watched its sunsets." His voice grew thick with emotion. "For 300 years, our family has passed down his memories. Now, finally, I will make my own." On the 15th day, they arrived. The fleet dropped out of the tunnel near a small yellow star, and there, hanging in the darkness, like a jewel, was a blue and green planet wrapped in white clouds. Earth owned by stood on the bridge of her ship, unable to speak. Tears streamed down her face. Around her, every member of her crew was crying, hardened soldiers. Brilliant scientists, tough engineers, all of them reduced to weeping children at the sight of their ancestral home. "It is real," someone whispered. "It is actually real." Admiral Junho's voice came over the communication channel. "All ships, this is the Admiral. 300 years ago, we were driven from this world. Today, we return, not as conquerors, not as victims, but as children coming home." The fleet descended slowly, carefully. They had worried that Earth might be damaged or polluted. The Council might have done something to their planet in their absence. But as they got closer, they realized the truth. Earth had healed. The cities were gone, swallowed by forests. The pollution had faded. The animals had returned. The planet that humanity had wounded so badly had used the centuries to repair itself. Yunbi landed her shuttle in a valley that used to be called Korea. When she stepped outside, she felt grass beneath her boots for the first time in her life. Real grass, soft and green, growing from real soil. She fell to her knees and pressed her hands against the ground. The earth was warm. It smelled like life. "Now we are home," she said, her voice breaking. "We are finally home." Across the planet, similar scenes unfolded. Humans knelt in fields and forests, crying and laughing and holding each other. They scooped up handfuls of dirt like it was gold. They dipped their hands in rivers and tasted real water. They looked up at a blue sky and watched birds fly overhead. Admiral Junho stood on a hilltop, looking out at a world he had only seen in dreams. Minji and Han stood beside him, silent with wonder. 300 years, Junho said softly. 300 years of wandering in the darkness. 300 years of fighting and suffering and hoping. He took a deep breath of clean air. And now, it is over. Mingi wiped her eyes. "What happens next, Admiral?" "What do we do now?" Junho smiled. "Now we live. We build homes. We raise families. We plant gardens and write songs and tell stories." He looked up at the sky, where the stars were beginning to appear. "And we never forget what we learned in the void. We never forget that compassion is stronger than hatred, that mercy is greater than revenge, that darkness cannot last forever." Across the galaxy, the news spread. Earth was reclaimed. Humanity had come home. And a new era had begun. Elder Nari received the message in her chambers on the new Accord station. She sat quietly for a long time, looking at images of green hills and blue oceans. Then she picked up her pen and began to write. A new chapter in humanity's story, one that would be told for generations to come. Once upon a time, she wrote, we were cast into darkness. We wandered for 300 years, alone and afraid. But we did not give up. We found friends in the void. We built a family from strangers, and when we finally came home, we brought with us something more precious than gold or power. She paused, thinking of her grandmother, who had told her stories of Earth when she was a child. Thinking of her mother, who had died still dreaming of blue skies. Thinking of all the billions who had suffered and hoped and waited, she finished the sentence with tears in her eyes. We brought compassion, and compassion changed everything. Outside her window, the stars burned bright, no longer cold and hostile, but warm and welcoming. A galaxy of possibilities. A universe of hope. The exiles had returned, and the story was just beginning.